guys, 7th here. Thought we'd look at another PSN game. This is another 10-minute taste, and this is for Afterburner. Now, of course, this is a retooling of the old classic Sega game, the Sega Arcade series. Also showed up on the Sega Master System with a sequel that originally was on the Sega Genesis. And to be honest, they haven't changed a whole lot in the way of gameplay. It's mostly a music and graphical overhaul. As you can see from just watching what I'm doing here, the gameplay has not changed incredibly much from the original series. You fly around, you get lock-ons, shoot the guys out of the sky, do rolls to avoid enemy oncoming fire, and try to get through the level as quickly as possible while hitting as many targets as possible. That's really about it. I mean, the graphics look great. I think it goes without saying that there are flight simulators out there that put this to shame graphically, but what can you expect? It's a $15 downloadable arcade game. But for an arcade game, the graphics are pretty fantastic, as you can see. The music is generic, but it does keep the blood pumping, so it's a good fit for the style of play, and you've got different tracks that you can select that will play while you're playing. Like the arcade games, and of course like Outrun, you have multiple branching paths that you can choose that will put you in different levels and different situations depending on which direction you choose to go. This gives it good replayability, I should say, because there are trophies that are dependent upon doing the other paths and doing them within certain time limits and things of that nature. So it gives you new goals to shoot for, which is cool. You also have multiple different models of jets. I think there's 3 or 4 that you can unlock, and there are also trophies for beating the games with each of the jets. So again, that's more replayability. There's not really any difference in feel when playing as one jet over another, at least not that I could really pick up on, but it still is a fun little way to extend the gameplay of the game. You've also got special attacks that you can set off after building up your meter, which once you activate it, everything slows down, which allows you to target multiple enemies and hit them for big bonus points. I almost did one there, but I didn't have any targets to aim at. Right off the top of my head, I can't really remember whether the original arcade game had that functionality or not. I don't really feel like breaking out the Genesis sequel to find out. And it might just be that, you know, last time I played the arcade game was probably 20 years ago, and I might not have even known that you could do it. So I'm not really sure. I can't remember, but it does come in handy in a pinch when you get surrounded by multiple enemies. That's for sure. Another thing that pads out the gameplay is that there is a whole shit ton of unlockables that you can unlock in this game. And it can be anything from additional jets to cheats that you can use, like always having your machine gun on without having to hold down the button, always being at your max speed, extra lives, extra everything continues, you know, so on and so forth. So the more you play it, the more stuff you have to play with. So it's, in my mind, it was worth the $14 that I paid for it. It may even be down to 10 now, I don't know. Meanwhile, here we are, just 4 minutes in, and I've already run out of things to talk about with this game. Maybe I should come up with 5-minute reviews. So, I guess what we'll do is, I'll just share a few memories of Afterburner. I can remember being in Orlando one year, and going to an arcade, and in the front of the arcade, it was a great big arcade too, I mean, you could tell it was a higher dollar type place. They had that Sega game, Galaxy something. I've got the Genesis sequel downstairs, but I can't remember the name of the game. It was Galaxy Wars, Galaxy something. And it was one of the moving arcade games that Sega was so popular for back then. But with the twist that it was basically a UFO with a seat in the middle of it, and the screen was attached to the end across from the seat. So when you turned, it would rotate the whole thing all the way around. And I'd never seen one of those before, and I thought that was pretty cool. But then I got in the back of this arcade, and they had the big, super expensive Afterburner that had the full 360-degree rotation. It's the only time I've ever seen one in an arcade actually running. And I got to try that thing out, and let me tell you, it was quite an experience. I'm sure, you know, they could probably come up with much more advanced systems now with the graphics and the things that they can do, but back then that was about the coolest ass shit that I've ever played, was sitting in that thing and spinning 360 degrees and shit. It was epic. It was epic, and I'm sorry I don't remember the name of the arcade. I wish I did. I'm sure they don't have it anymore, but goddamn, I'll never forget that. That was one hell of an experience. Even before that, though, one of the things I always hated was going to an arcade and all they had was the stand-up Afterburner that was just a standard arcade cabinet with a joystick. I hated that shit. If they didn't have the one that you could sit in that at least rocked back and forth or what have you, I didn't want to play it. It had to have some motion or it wasn't fun. So, I mean, that's the one thing that this game obviously cannot replicate is you don't have the moving seat. I'm sure there's some really super smart gaming nerd out there somewhere who has figured out a way to build his own. God knows they figure out how to build everything else. But for us regular gamers, we just have to use our imaginations, I guess. And of course, even nowadays, you can still find those kind of experiences at arcades if you go to the right ones. I mean, obviously, you're not going to find anything that in depth at a Chuck E. Cheese, but you know, they do have things like that at Dave & Buster's if you go to the right ones. Like I don't know if they still have it, but back in the day, you could go to the one north of Atlanta, out near Fayetteville, and they had these kind of Mech Warrior style simulator type things where they were all networked together, and you'd get into this pod and you control this robot, and you could compete against other people that were in there too. And I think that was the only Dave & Buster's that had it. I mean, I've been into 3 different Dave & Buster's since then, and that one in Atlanta was the only one I ever saw that had that particular experience. And that was a trip. That was a lot of fun. I mean, the graphics in it aren't up to today's standards. I mean, we're talking, you know, over 10 years ago. But I'd never seen anything like that in an arcade at that time, and I just really was incredibly impressed by it. But getting back to Afterburner here, obviously if you're a fan of the Ace Combat series, this isn't going to hold a whole lot of appeal for you. It goes without saying that a good deal of the fun to be had here comes from nostalgia. If you were a fan of the original arcade games, you're going to love this. If you're too young to have ever played those and you've since played games like Ace Combat, this is going to seem rather pedantic to you. But regardless, for just the general fun factor and for all the different things that provide the game with replayability, I would have to say that it's a definite buy. So it's available for both PSN and Xbox Live Arcade, and if this is the kind of stuff that appeals to you, which it certainly appeals to me, I would definitely recommend that you pick it up. If you have PSN Plus, it may have already been put on sale by them at one point, and you never know, it may go on sale again. So if you want to wait it out and you've got PSN Plus, be my guest. But if you don't have anything else on your slate right now, which for those of you who are strategy fans, next month PSN is going to have an exclusive strategy RPG and a kind of a Disgaea Final Fantasy Tactics style that's coming out. Something Moon. I can't remember the name of it, but it looks really good, and you should probably check it out too. But in the meantime, if you don't already have this game, give it a go. It's a lot of fun, good graphics, good music. It's a little bit short, but you know, they pad it out with all the different bonus features and what have you. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 7. 6 out of 7. So until next time, I'll have a new video up hopefully tomorrow. This is 7th.